Welcome back to the Physique Development Podcast. Today, we're actually going to be talking about a challenge that our very own Coach Alex went through. So Alex just wrapped up a 30-day posting challenge that he set for himself. So we're going to dive into, learn a little bit about what he learned from it, being able to just learn about his experience, the takeaways, and be able to go from there. So Alex, what really inspired you to take on this challenge in the first place?
There was a lot of things that inspired me, I suppose. And the first thing I would say within the inspiration was challenging my relationship with social media. So since I've been in college, more than 10 years at this point, I have been posting on social media with the intent of making money and helping people. And in that process, I've gotten to a place where this is how I take care of my family. This is how I put a roof over my own head as well as my family. And so my relationship to social media has a lot of ebbs and flows. I have negative energy, I have positive energy, obviously, and I wanted to challenge the constant response to how my content did. If it did well, I was happy. I did it, woohoo. And if it didn't do well, then I thought I sucked, and I took it very personally to myself. That people don't care about me, or that I don't know what I'm talking about. Absolutely stupid shit. Like it was so annoying that I would find myself in this situation. And so I thought, if I put myself in a spot where I had to post every single day, no matter what, that I would have to get over myself and execute. And that is exactly what came to fruition. So that was one big part. The other thing that I had thought about was challenging myself creatively. I wanted to, by having to post every day, I had to get creative of how I was going to go about that. One, to continue to have engagement, but also just in terms of time. Like if I was going to put a bunch of time into each post, then my work on a day-to-day basis was going to fall by the wayside. So I had to be very efficient with my creativity and challenge myself in making different types of content. The other reason was I see people post about posting for 30 days in a row, and it significantly improving their engagement, significantly growing their following. And I wanted to see, could I have the same result, or are these people just, they got lucky in that time period and were able to crush it. So I wanted to kind of test that out too.
Yeah, let's go back to that first one of emotions. Do you truly feel like you were able to have more neutral or evened out emotions within this posting time frame?
I had to. I would say that there was content, especially early on of starting this, that previously I would have been frustrated and not shared more content after. I would have been like, well, since that didn't do well, I'll just not post for the coming days. And once I get over it, I'll post something again. So I had to combat that very early on and improve on it. And by the end of it, I would have content that I thought would have done tremendously well, and it didn't. And I wasn't having that same emotional response of negativity. It was just whatever the reason was that it didn't perform, timing, the right people seeing it, the way that I opened up the video, how I went about conveying the information. There's so many things that could have been quote unquote wrong with it. And it's truly just data and feedback for me to get better with the next thing that I share.
Yeah. So within the creativity, were you truly able to be more creative, or did you feel like you were in a time crunch trying to get everything up constantly?
I do better with deadlines in general. If I'm just with an open canvas, I struggle. I'll procrastinate up until the last moment. If I have deadlines and things that are important to me, then I will make it happen and be more diligent overall. So although there was times where I was writing content or through the ideation process that I was maybe a little bit more rushed, I don't think that it took away from the quality of the content that I was creating or sharing.
why don't you go ahead and take us through a little bit of how you go about content creation? Since you've been doing this for over a decade, I'm sure it's definitely evolved, but through this 30 days, what did that look like for truly being able to go through ideation, scripting, and then putting it out there? Or is it just, hey, I found this video, I'm going to throw it up there?
None of the, I found this video, I'm just going to throw this up there. So shout out to Cash. Cash is who we film content with, and we shoot every other Saturday. And so I'm needing to create 10 to 14 pieces of content in one singular round of shooting, which we shoot for like 3 or 4 hours. So I need to be very well prepared with any of the props, the game plan for the videos themselves. And he and I need to be on the same page of what we're trying to do and the order that we're filming it to get that much filming done in that short period of time. So the process that I go through when creating the content itself is that I start with questions from check-ins. That's probably the easiest place to get content from as a one-on-one coach, is that I'm able to take previous questions from check-ins and then try to turn that into content itself. I have a lot of things that I've saved from other content creators that I'm like, I like how this was conveyed. I like the shots that they were able to gather. I like the sequence. I like the rhythm that they were able to establish through the video. And so then I'll use that as a foundation, and then I'll take the questions that I have from clients, and then how can I integrate the two? I think that a lot of people find that when they see content that they like, they don't want to copy it. And I think a big misunderstanding within creativity is that nothing is necessarily an original thought. It is you're taking information and making adjustments to make it your own and putting your own spin on things. So it's like I did a lot of different exercise execution things. Am I the one that founded these exercises? Am I the first person to talk about an RDL or a step up? No. But the way that I was able to connect and teach is my own spin on things. The different analogies that I may utilize, that's what's going to really stand out in the content and make it my own. And so I go about those as kind of the foundation. And then I start to write out exactly how I want to share the information. And then as I have the scripted content, I read it back to myself, and I kind of go through of how many shots or different camera angles do we need to gather to keep the attention of the viewer? And then is there props or things that I can be holding that would help convey my message or strengthen my message or make things just simply more understandable? And so then as I've gone through that, then I'm adding, okay, this is where we would want to showcase this or a zoom in to this particular part. And so then I'm adding the specific shots to the lines that I have written. And that is kind of the first full pass through for the content. That seems like a lot, and it is. I will say that the viewer on social media at this time is a very intelligent viewer. They have an abundance of content. The only way that you're going to gather their attention is by standing out. And unfortunately, a lot of people at this moment are standing out by saying things that are simply not true, by instilling a lot of fear, or just doing egregious things that are unnecessary for the sake of, I want your attention. And I want to combat against that, not whine about it, but combat against it by making great content that's doing the right things, not by doing this silly stuff, but just being great at making the content itself while having the great information alongside of it. And to do that, it takes a lot of preparation and thought that goes into it. And one of the things that I find so interesting about social media in general is that it can be tremendously complex, but it can also be tremendously simplistic. And you have to be able to balance the two things, because some of the posts that I've gone through with great analogies, and we do a lot of different camera angles, we zoom in on different things, we highlight different things, and it gets great engagement, shares, all of that. If I was just to simply convey the information and talk to the camera and say the things without all the other stuff, it would not get the same response. People would just swipe past it of like, I've heard that before. But because of how we laid it out and it just resonated more with the people. So I think, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. How long would you say on average it takes to go through the ideation and scripting, not even talking about the actual like shooting and editing part?
I would say for like 10 to 14 pieces, like 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 hours of just writing, potentially more than that, because I have the time tracked in my calendar. But on Fridays, I have more of like a free creative day where I'm doing training programs. I may have some meetings with clients, but then I'm also writing content. So it's like from the time that I wake up to the time that I'm done working that day, a large part of that is writing content. So I may be lowballing myself within the hours that are allotted. I could very easily say it would be up to 10, just depending on the complexity of the pieces that I'm sharing. So,
and when we're looking at the fact that you have been posting for over a decade, how has that posting evolved and the type of content that you've posted and the time and effort that you've put into it changed?
Oh my gosh, significantly more. I can look back just, 5 years ago, and 5 years ago I could take one picture of like a positioning in an exercise that would be correct. And then I could take a picture of a positioning in an exercise that would be incorrect. I could put some lines and pinpoint specific things, draw some arrows. And by highlighting those different things, I could post those photos side by side. And that piece of content would do tremendously well. If I was to post that same picture today, I don't even know if anyone would look at it. I think they would just swipe right by it because it's just not the type of content that is resonating with people now. And it's just like as you build a following, they're going to be expecting specific types of content. And so you need to kind of stay in that lane, because if you veer out of it, it's just not going to connect necessarily as well. At least what I have seen within my own content as I try to step out of the box a little bit, and it doesn't get that well received.
Are you wanting to step out of the box more and then people not receiving it the way that you think that it should, like stopping you from doing so?
I mean, if I was to say content that always performs well on my page, it's going to be training stuff, which makes total sense. I mean, that has been the foundational piece to physique development. So training content resonates very quickly with a lot of people, especially when I'm doing things that you want to watch out for, and this is a better way of doing this, those type of content pieces. I would like to have like one thing that does not do well on my page almost ever. Like I have tried many different renditions of this, is like quick 6 to 10 second videos that have text on screen. My audience does not like that. It is not what they enjoy whatsoever. And they much prefer the content that is a little bit more thought out and structured videos. But at the same time, like carousels don't do all that great on my page. Like videos now, you could say, what's the sample size of both of those things? The video sample size is tremendously higher relative to the carousels. But at the same time, I put a lot of time. We invest a lot of money into the content. I don't have time for things just to, tried it, got it. We'll try again. Like we need things to produce and to be seen and connect with people. Thus, I have a body of work that shows video does significantly better than anything for me. And so I'm gonna stick with video.
So when we're looking at the fact that you have posted for so long, I know we talked about emotions and how that goes into of like feeling bad if something doesn't perform as well, but how has this really impacted your mental headspace for posting for so long and being on social, especially, I know you and I have talked about it, but within being in a fitness realm where we have to look a certain way to a certain degree, of course, like it doesn't mean just because you're fit that you have knowledge, but that is what people discern from seeing someone. They want to see someone who looks like the way that they want to look. So how do you feel like that's impacted you within, like, a lot of people around our age have been on social media for a decade plus because we grew up with social media. But being on social media, then being on social media for work and your livelihood, I feel like are two different devils and demons that you're dealing with. While you can have a lot of negative impact from just being on it for a social reason, and we see that in clients, I know the impact that it's had on me on being on it for work reasons and having to be front facing in that regard. So how do you feel like that's played into things?
Well, I mean, before we even turned on the cameras and the microphones today, I switched out of a t-shirt into this sweatshirt because I was saying I'm a little fatigued from receiving comments of I'm not big enough. I'm also not lean enough to comment on different things. I'm told that I'm not like the value of what I'm sharing is not good enough because I don't carry enough muscle, but I don't carry enough muscle. I'm not lean enough. And then it's crazy comments. And I know that they're not true, but that doesn't make it necessarily like easier to digest. I think repetitions, like just getting more of those type of comments is probably the best thing for it, just to become more sensitized to it, I suppose. Because I would say 5 years ago, me receiving those comments hurts my feelings quite a bit more. Now, it's not so much that my feelings are hurt as much as I just don't want to receive them. And it's just like, well, I can avoid that by wearing a sweatshirt, I suppose.
So when we're looking at that in regards to posting as frequently, do you feel like that also plays in, again, going back to your emotions of, okay, if I post this, if I get this response, then I'm not incentivized or excited to post anything like this again?
I don't know how much thought really goes into the comments that I'm going to receive a whole lot. One thing that I will consistently bring up is I don't want to have a woe is me mentality of I have to stay in shape for work. Like, darn it, I have to take care of my body within my work. Like, I wish I didn't have to do that. Like, I don't think that way. And I don't want to come across that way at all either. But I think the more specific thing is the demand that you have to have very visible abs, very full muscle tissue all the time for your content to resonate and be like, okay, you know what you're talking about because you're as lean and as muscular as you possibly can be. And so that means whatever you say is true. And that is a little bit fatiguing for sure.
I couldn't agree more with that. But we'll keep this about you as we go through things. So were there any doubts or hesitations before starting this challenge and like knowing what to expect from it or being any bit nervous going into it?
I don't know necessarily nervous. I was cautious, just understanding my workload of how much each day demands of me to be focused on my client work and what we have going on within physique development. So I was weary of being able to keep up with it, just with everything that was going on the front end of doing this. We had a fat loss webinar that we were putting on. So I was in tandem with preparing for that and getting the slides and being able to practice all that, having to post, which I don't think is like it wasn't like I was posting zero content before this. I was posting probably 3 to 5 times a week prior to this. So it wasn't a huge increase, but it was a noticeable increase and something that I had to be very mindful and conscious of on a day-to-day basis, that it was the kind of the number one priority to get it off my list and then be able to move on with my day.
So what do you feel like was the hardest part of truly posting for 30 days straight?
Probably not getting bent out of shape that something didn't perform well, and putting so much time and effort into them and then them just not being either seen or getting the response that you expected. Like, I posted a content piece that I get pretty good feedback on. One that stands out to me, it was a Deb episode we went over Deb getting an Ozempic script and the weight that she lost was more muscle driven, and so she didn't actually lose that much body fat, and her body fat percentage increased in the time frame compared to I forget what we named her. Sarah. I think Sarah was the name. And Sarah had a high protein diet. She used progressive overload in the gym, and she had the same body weight loss, and then her body fat percentage decreased because of the adherence that she had. And I thought the way that we story told throughout that and utilized different components, I thought that was going to resonate better with people, and it just simply didn't.
How did you feel about posting? I know we just said of 30 days straight, but of every day of the week. And what I mean by that is that how we have things set up, for a really long time, we worked 7 days a week. And it wasn't until this past year that we really were like, no matter what, we are working 6 days a week. And our overall goal is to be able to get it to 5 days or 5.5 days. But right now it's mainly at 6. Sometimes it does push into the other day, but within having a day that you normally wouldn't post, was that a barrier of, this is a day I'm normally without my phone and I'm focused on being able to relax, and then having to turn around and be present on social media?
Yeah, I think that especially, so everyone's attention and what they're wanting to see from a social media standpoint changes throughout the week. I believe, and what I've seen within my content, is that Monday through Wednesday, people are wanting to learn and take in new information. That's a time where I've had more receptiveness to detailed posts or teaching on different things more. And then Thursday and Friday, I think the desire for those things starts to wean a little bit. And then as you get into Saturday and Sunday, people are wanting to have content that's humorous and things that they're able to relate to, and it just being quick content that is easy to digest. And so that was the challenge there, of having the different variations of content to share, and being able to resonate with the viewer within what their desires were for the particular day. But being on my phone on Sunday specifically, Saturday is not that big of a deal, but Sunday more so was certainly a challenge.
So did anything surprise you about the process, whether it was positive or negative as you went through it?
I didn't see like this huge shift in engagement as I would see other people make this big thing about. They'd make like YouTube videos and say, I posted 30 days straight and I gained 20,000 followers or whatever. I would say that the increase in engagement was simply just a volume of how much I was sharing. It wasn't like I was getting more engagement as the weeks went on and I was more consistent. After we got to 14 days in a row, all of a sudden things started to pick up more. Like the pieces that would have probably done well regardless of how often I posted, those did well. And then pieces that really wouldn't, maybe I can see why they didn't do well, would have probably not done well in a time when I was posting 3 to 5 times a week as well.
So with people doing those types of videos, were they insinuating or saying that because you posted consistently,
Yes.
that then things would come up, of just like posting every day helps the algorithm?
Yes.
Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
It's
good.
terrible for
You should
you.
lift heavy.
High reps,
Carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great
You
for your
should
knees.
squat ass to
Knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my
Macros
macros.
is for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need. How did your approach to the content creation then evolve throughout the challenge that you set?
I think honestly, the content got better as I went, just from reps and being able to be in the trenches on a day-to-day basis and seeing what's working and what's not working, and being able to give myself feedback. Because as I'm writing the scripts for the content, I'm able to look back at the scripts, look at how the content performed. If it didn't perform how I thought, then I'm looking at what was the average watch time, And were there comments, or what was my goal within posting it? Was it that I wanted people to share it? Did I want people to comment? Did I want people to save it? Did it align with what my goal was to that? And then being able to rewatch the video and analyze for myself of where did I miss in this piece? And then I was able to take that review and then apply it to what the next thing that I was recording or what we were going to be filming next.
With you mentioning the goal that you're looking for, that was something I wanted to dive into too. Because when we talk about success, I think people could maybe think like, oh, it had a ton of likes or it had a ton of views. So when you are posting something, what are some of those goals that you're looking for, that it might not just be likes or views, but what are you trying to, like, what is success for some of those posts, or some examples of that for you?
So for me, I don't have this dire need for views or likes. I think those are probably the two least important metrics to me. I think those are byproducts of other metrics doing better. What matters the most to me personally is comments and shares, and then saves is kind of third. The reason I say comments is that if someone feels compelled enough to comment, even like when I'm consuming content, if I feel compelled to comment, like I really either appreciated what the person was speaking to, or I felt like I connected a lot with what was being said. And so I generally, when I'm making content, those are the two outcomes that I want to have. I want the person who is watching it to feel heard. I want the person to feel that they're able to resonate with it, or I'm wanting them to just applaud the quality that they just watch. Like I watched the whole thing. This was great. Like my attention was drawn in from start to finish. Great job with this. Like those are the comments that you would likely have. Some people post content for people to comment in a way of they're trying to, like comments do help the content do well. Thus, people will post things that is controversial or like fear-based. So then people will comment to argue and be like, this is stupid. And then because of how the algorithm is set, because so many people are commenting, then that content does tremendously well. And you can see content like this on all platforms where it's like, this is such a dumb piece of content. It has 3 million views. You go to the comments, it's all just a bunch of junk. It's like, why did you do this? This is done. Like, you shouldn't have done this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I mean, again, that's the game that's there. You've got to understand the rules and how can you apply that to do the right thing, essentially. So I think that comments and then shares, to me, when I'm sharing content, it's because it made me think of someone else, or I think that another person would benefit from seeing it. And so if that is like other people consuming my content, I would imagine that is the case for why they're sharing. And that, to me, is adding value to people's life. Because at the end of the day, the main reasons that I'm sharing content, one, I really enjoy making content. I've come to like being on camera. I enjoy the whole process of it. I want to make a difference. I want to be impactful to other people's life. And I know to my core, physique development has so much ability to change lives. And I know that a lot of people that come into physique development, their first thing that they took in terms of content is my Instagram, your Instagram stuff. And so if I'm able to open the door for the possibility of us being able to change someone's life, to get them into better health and have generational health changes, like that's the opportunity that I take every single day when I'm posting. And the introductory to that within the comments and shares, as I just talked about, is a great step in that direction. That's why I prioritize those so much. And the shares also are helpful in knowing that they're saving it for later. Either they want to make a content piece that's similar to that, totally fine, do your thing. Or it was great information and they want to save it for later for a training session or whatever.
So for the pieces that you felt like didn't perform as well, I know you talked about the fact that you'll like go back, review them, see why they didn't perform. Outside of the things that you can see, are there some pieces that you're like, this should have performed well, and you're not really seeing why it didn't perform well?
I firmly have to stay 10 toes down on this, that if it did not perform well, there's something wrong with it. I cannot sit there and be like, it's the algorithm's fault. It didn't share it with the right people. It's all Instagram's fault. I'm amazing. Like, that is a terrible perspective to take to the content. You have to be nitpicky in those situations of what could you have done differently, especially in the first 3 to 5 seconds of a video. There are many ways to approach that. And that is often when you're going to lose people. Understanding that people are sitting there with their thumb ready to scroll up. It is in a ready position to, if you do not interest them, it does not spark right away, but it's not much effort for me to flick that thumb. And you're trying to have them stop scrolling. So how are you going about that? And there's a lot of really corny ways to do this. And a lot of those corny ways people have become numb to it, and it's an immediate scroll. And so you want to avoid those corny ways, but you also want to be powerful enough to have the scroll stop that they're interested. And so how are you going to go about that? And that's often where, if I was in review of the content, where we may have missed the mark a little bit, or potentially it's a longer piece, because a lot of, and I say longer piece,
knowing that means it's like 60 seconds instead of 45.
Yeah, it's 45 to 60 seconds is a long piece comparatively to these 6 to 10 second reels that so many people post and they perform well. It makes, as I said, my audience does not enjoy this.
No sense.
And so with that being 45 to 60 seconds, I could also lose them in the process. Did I get confusing with how I was trying to tell the story? Did I lose them at some point in how I was trying to convey my message? Could we have presented different visuals to make it easier to understand of what I was trying to articulate? Those are the things that I'm trying to review and get very granular with to better understand making the content better.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to blame the algorithm, but
Yes.
I know it's the mentality that we take of just, then the piece could have been better. We could have been better in doing it. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow sometimes when you spend a lot of time on one piece. And just this past weekend, I spent maybe 5 hours on one piece, and it's not even completed. And if it doesn't perform well, that's 5 hours of my life that then went into just learning how to get better, which is time well spent, but sometimes can feel really frustrating when you are moving forward with everything of, well, what if I just did this silly trend and then got X, Y, and Z? But I think that's also really important to look at what you are trying to get from the piece. And sometimes I'm not even trying to get likes or anything from a piece. I want someone to be able to message me from it. I want to start a conversation. I want someone to be able to want to sign up for coaching from it. So maybe it doesn't pop off on Instagram, but if it brings in inquiries, then the goal was reached. And I think that's a helpful mindset to have as well. But if you were to look back on this, what would you feel like is the biggest lesson overall that you really took from this experience?
The content that I thought performed well on my page is what performs well on my page. And really just the change in how it's presented is the thing that I got the most out of how we are presenting in those first 3 to 5 seconds was the thing. If I was to put together the content that did well and then put together the content that did not do well, the biggest difference is how we approach the first 3 to 5 seconds of that content, because some of the things that did not do well, the meat of it was great. It was just how we presented it early on just didn't connect. And there was some gaps in the ways that we could improve upon that. So that, and then I think it was nice to realize that the consistency wasn't the kicker. Like I don't know how feasible it would be to post for 365 days with all of the things that I have going on within the podcast and clients and so on. So that was kind of a relief, and realizing that posting probably 3 to 5 times or 3 to 4 times a week, focusing on the things that I learned from the structure to it is the best avenue for me moving forward.
I was going to ask about that, of if you're going to continue to post at that frequency or just adjusting that strategy moving forward. So going to 3 to 4 times a week now?
Yeah. And the challenge that I've made for myself now is a little bit more daunting than posting reels for 30 days. Because now I'm going into posting 30 days in a row on my story. And it seems backwards when I say it out loud, because posting 30 days on my story seems a lot easier. I could post the dogs for 30 days in a row, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to connect better. I am realizing that in this process of posting for the last decade plus, that I have not done a good job of opening up about who I am and just being maybe more vulnerable or allowing people to know me better. I think one of the things that why one-on-one clients always say is that they just love knowing more about our life. They love knowing more about the dogs. They love knowing more about me as a person that they know no one really gets from a social media standpoint. And so my intention or my goal within posting 30 days on my story is doing just that, is being it's not even necessarily more vulnerability. It's just sharing more. I'm sure that there are more vulnerable tidbits that will come with it. But just simply sharing more of my life. For instance, there was a day where I did like a timestamp on my story of just what my day entailed, how I started it, how we finished, and all that. I got some interaction with it, like during the time of posting it all. But after the fact, I've had multiple people, Rachel, my assistant being one of them, as well as friends of ours, commenting how much they enjoyed it. And I thought it was kind of ridiculous. So I think that is something that I would like to do more of. I'm wanting to do more of this. Like, I'm going to try to do one every week to see how it goes. And then getting back to question boxes, because I really do enjoy question boxes as well. But those are probably the most time consuming of them all, because I get great questions and I appreciate everybody who submits questions. I just get a little bit of fatigue because I want to have the best answer. And sometimes I don't have enough context to give the best answer. And then I'm going back and forth with the person trying to gather the information so I can answer it the best possible. And now we've sat here for 2 hours, and I haven't answered a single question.
And it's just like then your face is in your phone for multiple hours in the day. Because I will say that the balance, at least for me within social media, it's finding things that obviously people like and respond to and that you like creating and they're finding helpful, but also how you can keep up the consistency to be able to post for a decade. And a lot of the things that I get feedback on, and I know you as well, that people are like, oh, I really love this. It's like, that was the most time consuming. And as far as fitting that into my day-to-day life, like I know our priorities are very similar of like clients come first.
Yeah.
Our clients that are paying clients and our staff come first. And I even tell that if someone is messaging me and I haven't gotten back to them, I'm like, first and foremost, I can't care about the next client until I care about my current clients. And so we are working on how we can get everything done for our clients, how we can get everything done for our team. And then comes being able to respond to everyone else, which is still something really important to us. And we both love creating content, or we likely wouldn't have been doing it for this long. But that's where I feel like that push and pull of like, yeah, I love to do a question box, but I have to give myself 4 to 5 extra hours in a day to answer everything. And that means that my face is in my phone during that. And I feel the impact of being on my phone that much. And so I also have to keep like my own mental health in check and be able to balance that.
My cheat code for that is that I will screenshot the questions and then I'll go onto my computer and then type out in my notes app what the responses are. And then that allows for it to be a little bit more efficient for me. So I can go through, answer, and use my keyboard, not be on my phone. But then it's not like I still have to figure out how I'm going to lay it out on the screen, So then that's, I'm still saving a little bit of time, but yeah, question boxes are fun. One thing that I meant to talk about earlier is that one of the mistakes that I had made early in making content, and I've made a very conscious effort to not have this approach over the last probably year and a half, is that I would try and make content that other coaches or people that I looked up to would like. And I was like making content for their approval or to in some way help other coaches. And it's like, I don't have an offering that would be truly helping other coaches. I do some one-on-one mentorship, but that's a very small part of my week that I have there. And I would try and make content previously that would be appealing to those other coaches. And then the people that I actually want to work with just felt like I was talking over their head. I would use a bunch of jargon that was not resonating with the customers that we worked with. And since making that adjustment, I think that some of the coaches that follow me get a little irritated because I'm not speaking to them any longer, or directly to them. But if you're a coach listening and you're early, or you're not early, I just became more conscious of this at 8.5 years in, that you're not making content for Sue and I, unless we're your target demographic from a clientele standpoint. Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing, turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal: grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program. Because you are awesome and I want you to have this program, I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show.
So if you were to go back to day one of this challenge, would you do anything differently?
Make better content. Just take what I learned from this 30 days and just do it again better. And I think I'll do, I'm going to apply the things moving forward, and make better content. So I think all of it is looked at in a way, and I relate everything to baseball. Like my heart is part of baseball, basically, just with how many years of my life were dedicated to the sport. And I think it helps me tremendously to put it into baseball terms of a baseball player in the major leagues can go up to bat 10 times and he can strike out 7 of those, and only 3 of those times get a hit and could be considered a Hall of Famer. And that is it's very unique to the sport itself, but it applies in social media as well. I could post 10 times, but if 3 of those pop off and they do tremendously well, and they're well made and they have things that are going to directly impact physique development, for example, it doesn't matter. Those 3 pieces were enough to benefit the company. And I just look at it as every day I'm getting an opportunity, every day I'm getting an at-bat, and how well I'm prepared is going to allow for me to execute when I'm in that at-bat. If I'm in the day and I'm like, well, I have to post today, and I'm trying to scramble to post shit, that type of content never does well.
Never.
Literally never. If you're in that space, don't post. Just don't do it, and focus on, I'm going to post in 3 days. What do I want to talk about, and make multiple renditions of it, of how you're going to go about it and what it's going to really entail, and be brutally honest with yourself of, is this what you would want to consume if you were trying to learn about this particular topic? Some of the content that I post, I've watched probably 100 times.
Yeah.
I've reviewed, and we've done multiple versions of it because we make small detail changes. And that's truly what it's going to take to make great content. And I see people getting pulled into these different, this content is going to get you so many different clients and you need to follow this exact framework. And the reality is that the framework that is you can consistently do and that you can continue to refine and make that is what's going to get you whatever result you're trying to. It's not something that you're going to necessarily, you can maybe take bits and pieces from someone else's framework, but at the end of the day, it has to be you. There is a unique nature to everyone's framework and structure to their videos that they're able to repeatedly do And then that's what's going to create their audience and connect with their audience over time. And so, when I see like social media people who are posting like, my client did this and they used my exact framework. Yeah, they may have gotten some engagement from that particular thing, but is it going to be able to replicate for the next 6 months, for the next year? Are they going to be able to continue to build upon this? Or is it just it's basically a meal plan in the sense of fitness coaching? Like, yeah, you can do well for this week, but like, what are you going to do 6 months from now? What are you going to do for a year from now? Are you actually learning about what is going to help with your ability to connect and to the ability to be creative? I would say probably not.
How do you feel like this challenge really impacted your mindset outside of social media, looking at discipline, creativity, self-doubt, or any other emotions that you had?
I was really proud of my discipline because I'll be honest, I've probably told myself that I'm going to do this many times, and something happens and I give myself a nice little out. Well, because of this, it's not that big of a deal. And so what I like to do is that right on the wall next to my desk, I have these different personal contracts that I've written to myself, and I sign them. And it seems very silly in the moment of doing it. Seems unnecessary, but it really helped by being able to see that contract every day. Like I look over and I'd see it, I'd read it. And it just reminded me that this was important to me. This was a promise that I had made to myself. And I do find a tremendous amount of value in just maintaining the small promises that I have made to myself and not allowing myself to just get a pass. Like if I said I'm going to do the laundry today, like get up and do the laundry. Like I don't need to give myself these excuses and passes as to why I need to do it tomorrow. Like if it's a legitimate reason why, I won't have any guilt tied to it. If you're feeling guilty about it, like because you didn't do it, a true guilt, not because you were overworked and like it wasn't even in the cards for you to do. Like you can feel guilt because of that, and that's just poor planning. But if you're feeling guilt because you're just choosing to not do the thing, like that is showing yourself that you are not a trustworthy person. You can't even be trustworthy to yourself. And so then you see those decisions just be made over and over again. And even the smallest decisions, they just continue to mount, and you show yourself, I'm not a trustworthy person. And so then anything I tell myself, it's not that big a deal.
You lose so much confidence in yourself
Very quickly.
And then you even lose belief, and you're reaffirming each time you say, I can't do it, because your brain has now told you that you can't actually do it.
Exactly.
But I was actually thinking about that concept as far as like the aspect of keeping promises to yourself, of course, but specifically with something like the laundry I was thinking of just the other day, because I feel like people give themselves that guilt by saying they're going to do something when they know they don't have time to do it in that day. And then they're breaking the promise that they've made, even though it wasn't a realistic promise to make. And so I've tried to be a lot more conscientious, especially as I've just continued to work on time management, of why even say I can do something by a certain time if I know that I can? Because then I'm truly just setting myself up for failure, and extended failure, like repeated failure, because I'm now reaffirming to myself I can't do these things.
Exactly.
I want to switch away from the challenge as we finish up here, just to talk about some different things within social media. So what do you feel like is one of the biggest misconceptions people have within posting on social media, and especially with you doing it for work?
Biggest misconceptions, that it is easy. I feel like that is probably one of the biggest ones that I see. Like, I think Alex Earl is a really good example. She is a dog. Like her consistency, the way that she goes about her content creation is, she has earned all of the things that she has gotten put into place for her. And I think a lot of people will see it as, well, she does these get ready with me's and she is doing her makeup. Like it's not that big of a deal.
And you do it.
I'm like, have you seen how many people are on social media doing their makeup and doing get ready with me's, and their pages have no following? They have no interest. There's hundreds of thousands of people doing it that are not connecting. And she has found a way to be able to use those in a way that it literally feels like you're just sitting there FaceTiming with a friend.
It's so bingeable, even if you're not interested. Like you could care less about makeup, but you could sit there and binge her content just because it's easy to watch. And she's connected that. Like that's the thing of like, and we've been talking about this a lot, but the easier it looks, like the more advanced someone is in being able to do that. So if you look at someone, you're like, that looks easy what they're doing, they have a hell of a lot of work behind them making it look easy.
Exactly.
All those overnight successes.
Exactly. And she used the blueprint of Alex Cooper. Like Alex Cooper had a very similar framework, different platform, but she used it on her podcast to just be real and be honest. And it was like you were hanging out with one of your girlfriends. And you have people on a different end of things. You have someone like Jake Paul, where Jake Paul, people do not like him. And there are people who do like him. And so he's been able to use kind of like a Trump framework of whether you like me or you don't like me,
You're watching.
I have found a way for you to still make me money. And with his boxing, it's like people will tune in if they want to see him get knocked out or they want him to win. And it's the perfect situation because you've got both sides paying for you to get up there. He's 26 years old or whatever and just bought a massive jet.
Insane. That is such a huge jet. And that's something where like, I'm not personally a huge fan of either of the Paul brothers, but I have so much respect for both of them because you've been a fan in regards to, you think you've been like a fan in general, but especially in regards to just the respect you have for everything that they've done with social media, with their brands. And you'll show me like ads or videos that they do that I probably wouldn't normally watch. And I sit there, I'm like, dang, this is good.
Right.
Again, even if I'm not the ideal customer, even if I don't like them, I can recognize of like, man, they did a good freaking job with this.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that I'm a fan as much as I respect what they've been able to build, as you said. Like I have a lot of respect for their ability to each time that they come on to make content, I can see how much thought went into what was built. And I know that in a 15-second clip, 30-second clip, it may not look like a lot, but there was maybe 40 shots in there.
Yeah.
And there was so much that was playing to the mind of who was watching, not in a way of manipulation, but simply engagement and entertainment. That is, very admirable. And you have to give them the respect because they've been able to do it through multiple different platforms, and it doesn't matter. They're able to figure out the sauce and make their way through it.
They're on a lot. So how do you feel like you deal with the pressure of feeling like you're on, not all of the time, but a lot of the time with being on social media?
So I think one of the bigger challenges that I haven't highlighted so far is how much I was on my phone in the 30 days, because it was a combination of I'm on social for the fact of me posting, and then I'm also wanting to engage with those who engage with the content, but I'm also on because I'm trying to be creative and use examples to expand what I'm wanting to create the next week that's coming up. And so I was finding that my time on my phone was through the roof. Like yesterday was probably the first day that I didn't worry about me posting. I had already planned what I was going to post on my story and everything. And so my phone time was cut into like a third of what it had been for the last month. And it felt so freeing and I felt like my brain was just functioning far better. And it didn't dawn on me until later in the day. I was like, oh, because I'm not thinking about posting today. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to post tomorrow. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to be posting over the next couple of weeks. Like I was just present more so. And so I think one of the biggest challenges moving forward is how do I manage being present, but I continue to have the quality of content that I was able to create over the 30 days. And part of that is just preparation.
Big time. Because again, that like day of and being like, I need to post something. What do I need to post? That wastes so much time. The content doesn't end up being good. You feel rushed and anxious the whole day. Whereas like if I have my post planned out the week before, I have the captions ready, I have the post ready, it's literally just like, oh, it's this time of the day, I need to get this up. Yeah. And it's so much better.
So much better. Well, and I think one of the things, if you're going to be, watching content with the thought of I'm going to use these as examples, you need to put time in your calendar that's what you're going to be doing. Not just, anytime that I get on, I'm just going to try and learn, because that's going to be extremely exhausting, as well as very draining within your attention span. Like,
the mental
you're
fatigue.
watching 60-second videos at the longest. Most of them are 6-second, 30-second videos, and very stimulating, lots of bright colors and so on. And so putting dedicated time in and not watch this, I despise this when I get into phases of this, but when you get up from your desk to go to the bathroom, you get up from your desk to go to the kitchen, in all those instances, you're picking up your phone and looking, like you're watching stuff as you walk to specific places. Like, that is the worst habit to get into. I hate when I fall into that sequence. That is, if you're, struggling with feeling like you're so mentally overstimulated, just remove the time of walking and looking at your phone. Anytime you're walking somewhere, don't look at your phone.
Or even, I saw a reel the other day, and it was like how I got more time back in my day and have like the most consistency I've ever had. And the thing that caused it there, it said not taking my phone to the bathroom anymore. I was like, I can see how that would be a thing.
Well, one of the more relatable pieces that I've been seeing lately is that it's like I'm giving myself a break with the big screen because I did so good with looking at the medium screen that I'm going to watch my little screen with the big screen now and relax.
Yeah.
And it's like, myself included. It's like I'm looking at screens all day.
All day.
Being on the computer, being on my phone, watching TV in the evening. And so detraining that's a process.
What do you feel like is one post or moment that made you realize that this is bigger than just you?
Well, I've known for a while that this is far bigger than myself. We have employees, we have clients, it's always been, I shouldn't say always, but it's for a while now has been much bigger than me. Like, I have to be conscious of what I am posting, because if I'm just to go on there and bullshit and say silly stuff that maybe is only my personal belief, but doesn't reflect well on physique development, like I could be hindering 20 other people and their livelihood by my stupid decisions. So I have to be cognizant of that. And I'm very aware, and I welcome the responsibility. I want to have that responsibility. Like, I'm asking for that responsibility. So I do have to be aware of that.
And do you ever think about what comes after social media, or a time that you're not really on social media?
I think I'm going to be making content for my entire life. I think that, let's say that, physique development continues to flourish as it will, and I am 60, 70 years old. I'm not doing this anymore. And all of a sudden you see a new podcast / YouTube channel come to life, and it is Alex's Packers podcast every day. And I am just
every day.
Oh yeah. I'm recording a YouTube video every single day talking about how amazing the Packers are. And potentially, I'll have a chess channel, and I'll teach people how to play chess. I'll just be on chess.com live every day on TikTok. Doing all kinds of stuff. So I think that, making content and being able to document my life is something I have so much enjoyment with. We can go back as far as when I was a kid with my mom's camera, where you could not delete pictures off of these cameras. And I would set up my stuffed animals and create plays in terms of what was going on, and I'd put them in different spots, and then I would have all the pictures, and then I would explain to my mom what was happening, and she would be so irritated because I wasted an entire camera roll on these pictures of my stuffed animals that she just paid $25 or $30 for, whatever it was. And she thought that she was getting pictures of my baseball game, and that was not the case.
Happens to the best of us, honestly.
Or I'd have it with like my army like army figures. And so that was super young. I would say I was like 6 or 7 when I was doing that.
Always been a content creator.
I love it. Yeah. I love pictures. I love video.
Do you ever label yourself as a content creator though?
No, I sometimes.
I feel like I always label myself either as like a business owner or as a coach. And I very seldom like label myself as like a podcaster or content creator or anything like that. Even though I do obviously have a podcast and create content, I just feel like I personally always label myself first as either a coach or an owner. before anything else?
Well, I think to label myself as a podcaster, I would have to make money off of the podcast.
So true.
I have put a lot of money into this podcast. Lots
a lot
of money.
into it, but that doesn't necessarily reflect
a lot of money into this
out of
podcast.
it.
I put a lot of time into this podcast. I have not earned a single dollar off of this podcast yet. In due time, that will occur, and that's okay.
We got the cameras, we got the microphones, we got the creme de la creme.
Yeah, we've got all the stuff. And I think from a content perspective, I don't make money directly off of content either. I don't have brand deals that I'm doing. I earn money in an indirect way from this podcast and also from my content, but it's not a direct. I think to label yourself that way, your income would need to be in some way connected to that.
Yeah. I feel like that's always why I've never labeled myself as an influencer specifically, is because while I do have some like codes with brands, like my income has always been based off of like being a coach instead of having those brand relationships or deals or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting because we do create a lot of content.
A ton.
But
literally.
How many pieces of content do you think you've created?
Over time? I mean, I firmly believe that if this AI situation continues to blossom, I mean, it's going to be very difficult with how much is out there of my voice and all the different things that I have said that's on recording and everything to not completely mimic me, you know? So that much content.
That much content.
Yeah.
Is there any content that you either have in the pipeline or that you're looking forward to creating that you're super excited about?
I'm always looking forward to the next content filming session. I've got a handful of pieces. One thing that I did find over this time of posting 30 days is that being able to have strong analogies that people are able to connect with is a strong way of conveying a particular message, especially in short form. And so I have a few different analogies that are connected to supplementation and other things that I think will resonate very well with people. One interesting thing is that over the 30 days, the very first piece that I posted was the best in terms of viewership. Like the most viewed content that I had over the entire time was the very first thing I posted, which was a muscle or dinosaur piece from this podcast. And then the second most, viewed piece or best performing was the second to last thing I had posted. And then the third was the 15th piece that I had posted. So it was like I did great at the very beginning, I did great in the very middle, and I did great at the end. What was in between there? We had some pieces that did well. We had some pieces that struggled.
Which I think that I don't ever like to complain or be like, oh, people aren't liking my content. Because like we talked about earlier, I firmly believe if it was good enough, then people would have either commented or interacted. Yes, you can talk about how sometimes the time that you post it or something like that plays into it. Like I'm not negating that those hold a place, but I firmly believe if it's fucking good enough, it's going to perform well. But I do like to remind people that like first, engaging is free. And if you do like the content, to engage. Again, don't engage if you don't like it. Like that's good feedback. But especially like you mentioned of like the timestamps of a lot of people didn't directly tell you it was good until later. How we're judging what to do is based off of the data. And the data we have is looking at the shares, the comments, the likes, the saves, and how people are talking about the pieces. So if you end up really liking a piece and you never interact in any way, again, not saying you have to do everything, but that is inferring to me or solidifying to me of like people don't like this piece. And so instead of asking for interaction, I really like to ask for just feedback, but also remind people what the interaction actually does help. So again, if you don't like it, literally don't like it. But if you do, even if it's a message and you don't want to comment on it and have everyone see your comment or anything like that, being able to have that, even if you listen to this podcast and you're like, you just got a message the other day from someone saying like, hey, this episode or this podcast really helped me in this way. Like those are so helpful for us to continue making the type of content that people like.
Very true.
So just a little reminder, if you want to like, share, comment, or share this with a friend, then we'd appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed, all that fun stuff.
Well, I think it's hilarious that we don't talk about this earlier in the podcast when a majority of people are truly listening. Like, you wait to say these things until the very end, which these are the dedicated people.
Yeah.
These are the people
homies.
that are already doing what you're saying.
These are the homies. Well, David, put this in earlier. Cut it out, put it at the beginning, put it at the end. We'll have everyone listen.
Exactly.
If you don't know by now, David's the man behind the podcast, making it all come together.
Truly.
We
get to sit down, talk, hit end of record, and then all of a sudden it comes to life.
All of a sudden we have a beautiful podcast.
Exactly. This is because of David. Because David is amazing.
David is amazing.
We should just do an episode dedicated to David. I also think we should have David on the podcast. Wow. He's listening to this and saying, I don't want to be on the podcast. He's like,
no, I don't want to be on the podcast. But maybe when he comes and he helps us set up the new space, then we'll trick him. We'll think of something.
I don't think we're going to pull anything by on him, but maybe
peer pressure. Do you think he responds?
I don't think he responds well to peer pressure. What was the last thing we tried to peer pressure him on? There was something in the team meeting. We can talk about this off air.
I don't know.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.
It's funny you're saying that at the very end.
See you guys.
Bye.